My name is Virjean Arabo. I was born in a town south of Iraq called Samawah. My mother and father are teachers, and they were working in that area. That's where they were appointed by the government to work. So they went there, and I was born in that area. I spent the first couple years of my childhood there. Then we moved to another town called Yusfiya, and then we moved to Iraq. I was, I think, 7 years old or 6 years old when we moved to Baghdad. I remember the town of Samawah, where I was born. I remember my house, the house that I was born there, the street. That's all I have, a memory. I think we were the only Christian Chaldean in the town. The rest were all non-Christian. And we moved after that to another town closer to Baghdad, where we spent a year or a couple years, and we moved to Baghdad completely. And I started going to school in there. Of course, Baghdad was much bigger. It has many more people. The towns were small at that time. We lived with the other families in Baghdad because my father did not move the first year with us. So we were with my mom the first couple years. And we went to school. I went to a Catholic school in that area, which is one of the oldest Catholic schools. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was Synagogue. In the Synagogue, they called it. It's a Catholic school, belonged to the nuns. That's where we went. I stayed in Baghdad all my life until I got married. What I remember from living in Baghdad is mainly school, being with the other families, relatives. I remember my mother and father were busy working all the time, and we were busy going to school. I remember how hot it was in summertime, Baghdad. I remember when it rained, the streets were all muddy and dirty. But it was a good life. It was a good life. But all my life I wanted to explore, to leave Iraq and explore and live in other places and find out how other places are. I always dreamt of that. The government at that time was, we had a kingdom, we had a king at that time, Faisal Thani. And I remember in 1958, I was in middle school, I think, or maybe elementary, when the revolution happened in 1958. And it was a scary time. It was exciting, but it was a very scary time. It was not certain. We didn't know what was going to happen, so we stayed home for a long time. And then after it settled down, things kept on changing in Iraq from one government to another. We had different presidents, different people that ruled the country. So it wasn't stable at all until I left in 1967. It wasn't, but I spent there beautiful years of my life, especially when I was in college, and coming by bus, going to school by taxi all the time. We had a taxi that comes and pick us up every morning. And coming back, I used to take the bus and come home. And the years that I spent in college were beautiful years because our professors that we had in school were all educated from Sorbonne in France, from United States College, and they all had their PhDs, very educated. We learned so much from them. And I always appreciate those years. I majored in economics and political science. And that was the name of the college, political and economics. And economics and political science. In 1967, I met my husband, Faisal, and we met in Baghdad, and we got married, and we came here. Faisal came to this country in 1952 by boat to New York. And he came to Detroit area, and he started working right away and going to school. He finished college here and took his master's also, and worked for General Motors for a few years. Then he came to Iraq, and we got married, and we came back here. At that time, Faisal wanted to switch from working as an engineer, and he went to New York Life Insurance Company and started working as a salesman. He did really well. He always make a joke. He says, I paid the first year of New York Life, with New York Life, I paid in taxes more than what General Motors paid me in 1 year. So he enjoyed his work. I think the reason why he enjoyed his work, because he was with the community all the time. He loved being with them, going to see them in the stores, visiting them, going to every occasion that involved the community, whether it's a party, if it's a wedding, if it's a funeral, everything. He never missed anything. He enjoyed his people, and the people were wonderful to him. We had 5 children together, and we did our best to raise them the best way we can. They are all married now, and Faisal is retired right now, and he's home, sitting home. I arrived in 1967. It was close to Christmas time. And I remember we celebrated Christmas here, and the first New Year here also. And after that, that was it. The first area I lived in Detroit, on Euclid and 2nd, I think. I don't know if it's still there or not. Then we moved to 6 Mile and Woodward. After a year or two, we moved to the east side, to Dequindre and 12 Mile. And then we came to the west side and lived in Southfield. Then I moved here to West Bloomfield. The community in Detroit, they had only one church that was on Hamilton, I think. And I remember the church. I remember Father Garmo. And after that, the community used to meet in, like now, in weddings, but we were not that many, and we knew one another. And I'm sure the people who came before me, they think the same way. But when I came also, it was not so many people. So we were close and we knew each other. And at that time, I remember they were working on, the community was meeting many times. They were trying to establish a club for the Chaldeans. And they had membership, and Faisal's membership in the club is 0111. Now it's in the thousands, I think. But that's his membership. Until now, in Shenandoah, his member is 0111. One day in 1967, when I was still in Baghdad, we were watching TV, and suddenly they were showing us the riot that is happening in Detroit, how people were breaking into the stores and rioting in the streets. And I didn't picture that something like this can happen in the United States. I thought only in the Middle East something like this will happen. So when I came here, I saw the area where my husband took me and showed me the area where all the riot happened. And it was not safe at that time in Detroit area. To be in Detroit, that area wasn't safe. I remember when we used to go home, when he used to live on Euclid, and second, we had to go early home, and we have to be with more people, not just us, 1 or 2 person walking in the street at nighttime. So it wasn't that safe. So we did not stay that long, and we moved to 6 Mile and Woodward. And at that time, the other incident that happened was the murdering Martin Luther King. I remember I was on that area, and it was a scary time too, because we didn't know what's going to happen. People were angry. Then we moved to the east side. Then we came to Southfield, and then to West Springfield. When I came to this country, my role and my dream was to continue studying and going to school. I even brought my books with me from college because I was dreaming I'm going to school, all that. Then I got pregnant, and I had a baby within 9-10 months. And the second one came, and I got involved with them. I had 5 children in 10 years, but they are all now grown up, of course, and they continue studying instead of in my place. They finished college, took their masters and all that. I had a call from Josephine Sarafa years ago, and she said, we have a meeting in Southfield Manor. We want you to come and be part of it. I didn't know what the meeting was going to be about. So I went to that meeting, and there were so many people that came to the meeting too. The second meeting, less people showed up. The third meeting, even less than that. And we end up 17, I think 20 or 17 people. But the basic ones that went from the first day stayed on until we opened this museum. And I was one of those people that I stayed all this time. Josephine Sarafa is a wonderful Chaldean woman. She's a teacher. She had a big dream to build a museum. And the other lady that was with her that had shared the same dream was Rosemary. And Rosemary, it's too bad that she died and she didn't see the opening of the museum, but she was a very enthusiastic person. She really wanted to have something like this for the community. We divided the role between us according to the capability of that person or the knowledge that that person has. I think I was asked to be part of the museum because I'm an artist, and they needed that artistic feeling in it. And we divided out the work. Some took care of the religious part, some took care of the history, others with the Chaldeans today or Chaldeans in the future. So we had the museum is divided into 5 sections, and each one of us took one section, or every 2 or 3 of us took one section. But in the end, we were all together working on everything else. The meetings took a lot of time for so long, for so many years. I remember one time we had a meeting here at Shenandoah for 3 days, from the morning until night. The company that built the museum came, or designed it, I'm sorry, came from New York, and we had to be with them. So we had meetings in the morning, in the afternoon, at night we have to take them out and entertain them. So it was a lot. We spent a lot of time, but it was a wonderful time. I never felt it was too much for me. I enjoyed it a lot. My personal feeling when the museum was open is joy, lots of joy. We worked very hard on this museum, and we came to see it into fruition, and we see what we have, worked for and spent so much time to do it, and we see it in reality, not only on paper. So it was a very happy time, good time for me. Oh, I have a lot of hopes, especially from our young people, young generation, to take this beginning and add to it and make it bigger and bigger, because you could expand this museum and make it one of the most beautiful, and it's an important museum. It's not like it's showing things that happened 100 years ago. It's history that goes back to 3,000, 5,000 BC, years BC. So, and the most beautiful thing about the museum is the need for it. Our people needed this museum more than the American, I think, or the anyone else who doesn't know who the Chaldeans are. We know ourselves, but we do not know the details of our history. And especially the young generation, they know nothing. So we were hoping that this will be an eye-opener for them to look at it and say, yes, we can expand this, we can add to it, we can make it bigger. So that's my hope for the museum. My father is a Syrian, and he is from Duhok, north of Iraq, and my mother is Chaldean, and she is from Zakho, north of Iraq also. Well, my mother, she was a teacher. She became a teacher, and my father was already teaching in north of Iraq. But when she got married, the government at that time, what they do is they make sure that the husband and wife are together in the same town. And she could not teach in the same town that she was born in. I don't know why. Maybe they didn't have vacancy or something. So they gave them a chance to go to south of Iraq, both of them, and work there together. My father used to tell me a lot about how unfair things were against the Christian people, especially. And many people were murdered and killed and kidnapped at that time. I'm talking in the 30s, in the 1930s. This happened, and during history it happened, and until now it's happening. It did not stop. Maybe it took a different look, a different way, but it's the same thing. It's my feeling during when the war started in 1990 or 91. We were in shock, and to see the old city that you grew up in being bombed so unfairly like that. It was very sad. We cried a lot, and it wasn't a good time to see the country that you live in, that you love so much, is bombing the country that you were born in. It was a very unusual feeling. I don't think many people knew what it feels to have that contradiction, And it was repeated again in 2003. It was something, I don't know if there will be another one or not, but I know the second one demolished the country completely, and people are still suffering from that until now. The last time I visited Iraq was in 1990, right after the Gulf War, because I wanted so much to see what's happening in the country. And we went to many places that were bombed, like one of the bridge, Jisr al-Mu'allaq. And I went and I saw it, barely hanging, and a big part of it is laying on the Tigris River. It was a very sad thing to see, very sad. But that was the last time I went to Iraq, and I said to myself, this is the last time I come here. I don't want to go see it again. I was too sad. And I haven't gone yet. When we were young, my mom and dad, they used to take us to north of Iraq to visit the town where they were born. So we used to go there, and I had my uncle there. We had relatives, so we used to go and see Duhok and Zaho and stay there for the summertime, because it's beautiful there in summertime. It's not hot as it is in Baghdad. So we went and saw it completely. The genocide that happened was a very painful time of our lives, all of us as Christians, because it affected me and it affected every Christian person. And I'm sure that it affected many other people who are non-Christian, because they didn't like to see that. Nobody wants to see something like that. Nobody wants to see murders and shooting priests in a church, or kidnapping a priest, or stuff like that. Nobody wants to see that or hear about it. It's very disturbing. The last thing I want to say is, please keep the work going. Please let this museum grow, and let it be one of the most beautiful museums. You will be proud of it, you and your children's and your grandkids. It is something that it has not been done anywhere else in the world. We don't have a Chaldean museum anywhere. This is the first one. So my hope is for the new generation is to carry on and add to it and make it big and make it famous, so people will come from all over just to see it. I would love to see that.